London, March 22, 1765. Parliament passes the Stamp Act, a simple tax on paper, stamps, documents. Newspapers, legal papers, playing cards, all taxed. British lawmakers celebrate new revenue streams. Across the Atlantic, colonists will wake to tyranny they cannot accept. No colonial representative stood in that parliamentary chamber. No American voice spoke against this dangerous measure. Parliament claimed absolute authority over subjects living 3,000 miles distant. The principle was established clearly. London ruled America. Colonial consent meant absolutely nothing to them. Benjamin Franklin sits in London as colonial agent. He argues against the tax, warns Parliament of certain resistance. They dismiss his concerns completely. Now, he writes urgent letters homeward to Philadelphia. His words carry dread. They have planted seeds of discord that will grow into terrible rebellion. Picture the distance separating two worlds. Weeks separate London from Boston Harbor. News travels slowly across endless ocean swells. While Parliament celebrates, colonists remain completely ignorant. The storm approaches unseen across Atlantic waters. When word finally arrives, fury will explode with volcanic force beyond imagination. April's merchant ship brings copies of the Stamp Act to Boston's crowded harbor. Merchants gather anxiously at the wharf, reading provisions. They read with growing horror and disbelief. Every transaction, every document, every newspaper, now taxed heavily. Their businesses face financial ruin under this crushing burden. I am Samuel Adams, Boston's most dangerous agitator. I read this act and see tyranny naked before me. They tax us without asking our permission first. If Parliament claims this power today, what prevents them from taking everything tomorrow? Today stamps, tomorrow our land, homes. Freedom itself disappears. The tax seems small at first, merely pennies on colonial documents. But observe the deadly principle beneath these pennies. British Parliament asserts absolute authority over colonial purses forever. They need no colonial consent, respect no colonial rights whatsoever. Once accepted, this precedent destroys every protection colonists believed they possessed. Patrick Henry stands before Virginia's House of Burgesses today. Young, fiery, eloquent beyond his years. He proposes bold resolutions declaring only colonial assemblies possess taxation authority. Older members call him treasonous, dangerous. Henry responds defiantly, "If this be treason, make the most of it." The chamber erupts. Virginia resolves firmly. Parliament has no right to tax American colonies. Other colonial assemblies watch nervously from afar. Will they follow Virginia's bold stance now? Massachusetts wavers uncertainly. New York debates endlessly. South Carolina considers carefully. Each colony faces identical questions. Submit meekly or resist boldly. Unity begins forming slowly. Meet Thomas Johnson, Boston's struggling printer. The act targets him directly, personally. Every newspaper page requires expensive stamps now. Costs will triple overnight, maybe quadruple. His competitors face identical ruin simultaneously. Should he raise prices, lose customers, absorb costs, starve slowly? Or defy Parliament, risk prosecution, imprisonment, death? Johnson gathers fellow printers in a dark tavern's back room. Candles flicker on worried faces around scarred tables. "We print truth, or we print nothing," he declares boldly to them. "No stamps will mark my papers." Others nod agreement solemnly. The press becomes resistance. Words will become powerful weapons. Consider the stamp distributor's impossible dilemma carefully. Andrew Oliver accepts the lucrative Boston appointment eagerly. The generous salary promises wealth, status. But neighbors now view him as traitor to America. His children face harassment daily. Effigies hang from Liberty Tree bearing his name. Money versus community, which matters more? August 14th arrives hot, tense, unbearably humid. A massive crowd gathers beneath the Liberty Tree. Andrew Oliver's effigy swings overhead mockingly. Thousands watch as demonstrators systematically destroy his stamp office completely. Oliver flees in absolute terror. Boston's elite suddenly realize popular anger has become uncontrollable force. The defiant crowd calls themselves Sons of Liberty proudly. Merchants, artisans, sailors unite together against tyranny. They organize resistance through intimidation and calculated violence. Stamp distributors across 13 colonies resign in fear. Without distributors, stamps cannot be sold anywhere. Parliament's tax becomes completely unenforceable through coordinated colonial action. I lead the Sons in Boston streets. We are not mindless mob destroying randomly. Every action serves careful strategy, specific purpose. We target symbols of British authority while avoiding innocent blood. Property destruction sends our message clearly. Colonial Americans refuse submission utterly. We choose freedom over security, always. Lieutenant Governor Thomas Hutchinson writes desperate letters to distant London. Violence escalates beyond any control now. His own mansion was sacked viciously, family terrorized, possessions destroyed completely. He begs Parliament to reconsider immediately. The people here will never submit, he warns urgently. London ignores his desperate pleas entirely. Colonial merchants discover their economic power suddenly. They organize non-importation agreements throughout colonies. No British goods purchased until the Stamp Act dies. Ships arrive in American ports, but warehouses remain closed tight. London merchants watch profits vanish overnight. Economic pressure builds across the Atlantic steadily, relentlessly. British manufacturers petition Parliament desperately now. Colonial boycott devastates their businesses utterly, completely. Workers face unemployment, or starvation. The act meant to raise revenue instead costs Britain dearly. Economic reality confronts political principle harshly. Parliament must choose, maintain authority or restore profitable commerce. Pride proves expensive. Picture London warehouses overflowing with unsold goods rotting. Textiles, tools, china, tea, merchandise destined for America sits unused. Investors panic, sell everything. Stock prices fall precipitously daily. The colonial market represented enormous wealth previously. Parliament's tax policy threatens British prosperity itself, fundamentally. Merchants demand urgent repeal immediately. October brings unprecedented colonial unity, finally. 9 colonies send delegates to New York City. The Stamp Act Congress convenes, first unified colonial assembly ever. Representatives debate, argue, finally agree unanimously. They draft petitions asserting colonial rights boldly. Parliament claimed too much authority. Colonies push back together, united. James Otis paces the Congress floor passionately. Brilliant lawyer, eloquent speaker, unstable mind. Taxation without representation is tyranny, he thunders. His words electrify the chamber. Colonial delegates had felt this truth, but lacked precise language. Otis gives voice to colonial fury. One phrase captures everything. I am John Dickinson, Pennsylvania's thoughtful delegate here. We walk dangerous ground between loyalty and rebellion daily. Our petitions use respectful language while asserting bold claims. We profess allegiance to the crown, but deny Parliament's authority. This crucial distinction will prove essential. King versus Parliament. Where lies true sovereignty? November 1st, the act officially takes effect. Or should. No stamps exist in colonial hands anywhere. Distributors resigned months ago under pressure. Courts close rather than operate without the required stamps. Newspapers print without required markings defiantly. Colonial life continues in defiant disregard. Parliament's law becomes meaningless paper. Royal officials face impossible choices now. Governor Francis Bernard in Massachusetts cannot enforce compliance. He lacks troops, lacks support, lacks options. Should he arrest thousands of protesters? Declare martial law? Request military reinforcement from England? Each path leads toward disaster. Authority evaporates when populations refuse obedience completely. Some colonists attempt compromise foolishly. Why not voluntary compliance, good faith? Purchase stamps, demonstrate loyalty, negotiate better terms? Samuel Adams crushes such weakness ruthlessly. Obedience establishes precedent, he argues forcefully. Once we submit, they own us completely. Resistance must remain absolute, universal, uncompromising always. Winter brings Parliament's reckoning. Members watch colonial trade collapse completely. British merchants flood Westminster with petitions. Manufacturing towns face economic catastrophe. William Pitt rises to speak, war hero, commanding respect. "I rejoice that America has resisted," he declares. "Taxation without representation means slavery." The chamber sits stunned. Benjamin Franklin testifies before Parliament for grueling hours. He faces hostile questions, barely concealed contempt. One member asks, "Will colonists accept any taxes?" Franklin responds coldly, "External duties regulating trade, yes. Internal taxes reaching our pockets, never." The distinction confuses Parliament. They misunderstood colonial psychology completely. Picture Parliament's genuine confusion, bewilderment. They truly believed colonial taxation legitimate, proper. Colonists seemed merely subjects requiring revenue contribution. Franklin reveals deeper truth. Americans view themselves as equals, not subordinates. This perception gap underlies the entire crisis fundamentally. Misunderstanding breeds conflict that force cannot resolve. March 18, 1766. Parliament votes repeal finally. The Stamp Act dies 1 year after birth. Colonial celebrations erupt everywhere simultaneously. Church bells ring, bonfires blaze, merchants toast King George enthusiastically. Americans believe victory proves their rights, but Parliament simultaneously passes the ominous Declaratory Act. Read the Declaratory Act's words carefully. Parliament possesses authority over colonies in all cases whatsoever. They surrender the tax while maintaining absolute sovereignty. Colonial rights mean nothing against parliamentary power. Repeal represents tactical retreat, not philosophical concession. The fundamental conflict remains unresolved. War approaches inevitably. I am Thomas Hutchinson, now Massachusetts governor. I watch celebrations with growing foreboding, dread. Colonists misunderstand their victory completely. They believe Parliament admitted error, recognized colonial rights. Instead, Parliament simply chose convenient moment for retreat. Next crisis will come. Conflict merely postponed, not prevented. The Stamp Act crisis changed everything permanently. Before, colonists considered themselves loyal British subjects. Afterward, they recognized separate interests from Britain. Organized resistance proved effective. Violence achieved political goals. Unity demonstrated strength. Parliament learned colonies possessed power. Both sides learned dangerous lessons. Sons of Liberty chapters now span 13 colonies. Communication networks link distant cities. Future resistance already possesses infrastructure. When Britain enacts new provocations later, colonial response mobilizes within days. The Stamp Act crisis created revolutionary machinery. Leadership identified, networks established, methods tested. Organization awaits next spark. Samuel Adams surveys results carefully, strategically. Resistance succeeded. Parliament retreated. Colonial unity emerged. Popular mobilization proved powerful. But what precedents were established? Can civilization permit mob violence? Does resistance justify property destruction? Adams understands. Revolution requires controlled chaos, directed fury, purposeful mayhem. British officials recognize changed landscape clearly. Military Governor Thomas Gage writes London, "Democracy is too prevalent in America. Colonial assemblies claim excessive authority. Popular movements threaten order. The empire requires firmer control, stronger enforcement, military presence. Next time, Britain will not retreat so easily." Andrew Oliver, former stamp distributor, walks Boston streets alone. Neighbors still shun him coldly. His reputation remains ruined despite the Act's repeal. He chose British authority over community loyalty. That choice marked him permanently. Some decisions cannot be undone. Consequences persist beyond immediate circumstances. Thomas Johnson, the printer, feels vindicated finally. His press defied Parliament and survived intact. Newspapers remained independent, unsullied by British stamps. Truth prevailed over tyranny, but he wonders, What comes next? Will Britain attempt new controls? How far will resistance need to go? Victory raises harder questions. Patrick Henry's fame spreads beyond Virginia rapidly. His defiant words became rallying cry. Young lawyers throughout colonies quote his speeches. He showed how eloquence could challenge power. Words properly deployed possess tremendous force. Henry discovered his life's purpose, speaking truth to authority, articulating colonial grievances, inspiring resistance. I am ordinary colonist, Massachusetts farmer. Politics seemed distant before this crisis. Parliament, governors, assemblies, elite concerns. The Stamp Act touched my life directly. Suddenly, political decisions mattered personally. I learned ordinary people possess power through collective action. That lesson will not be forgotten. Taverns buzz with political debate nightly now. Farmers, blacksmiths, sailors discuss rights and liberty. Previously, politics belonged to wealthy elite. Stamp Act crisis democratized political consciousness. Ordinary colonists discovered government decisions affect their lives directly. Theory transformed into lived experience. Colonial political culture fundamentally changed. John Adams observes transformation carefully. Common people now quote Locke, debate constitutional theory. The crisis awakened political consciousness across all classes. When government violates fundamental rights, resistance becomes duty. These principles will guide Adams through coming revolution. He begins writing, arguing, preparing intellectual foundation for independence. Colonial merchants learned British goods proved replaceable completely. American manufacturing developed rapidly during boycotts. Self-sufficiency became possible, even desirable. Economic ties that seemed unbreakable before crisis now appeared voluntary. Colonies possessed more autonomy than anyone realized. Commerce had become a political weapon. Independence became economically feasible. The crisis raised troubling questions about violence. Mobs destroyed property, terrorized officials, enforced boycotts through intimidation. Such methods achieved political goals but threatened social order. How much violence serves liberty? When does resistance become lawlessness? Colonial leaders struggled balancing revolution's needs against civilization's requirements. I witnessed the violence personally, closely. Crowds dragged stamp distributors through streets, mansions burned, families fled in terror. Yes, the cause was just. Parliament violated our rights, but watching neighbors transform into vengeful mob disturbed me. Can righteous anger excuse such actions? Does end justify these means? Samuel Adams defends popular action carefully, strategically. Violence targeted symbols of oppression, not innocent people. Property destruction sent necessary message. Elites only respond to force. Peaceful petition achieved nothing. Violence proved effective. Adams argues results justify methods. Revolution requires uncomfortable tactics. Future leaders must make such calculations. Conservative colonists recoil from mob violence instinctively. Wealthy merchants fear losing control. Property rights matter. Order maintains civilization. What if mobs turn against colonial elites next? Violence unleashed cannot always be directed. Some colonists begin questioning resistance movement. Internal divisions emerge that will complicate revolutionary unity. Paul Revere engraves inflammatory images skillfully. His prints show British tyranny visually, powerfully. Cartoons spread faster than written arguments. Pictures communicate across literacy barriers. Revere understands propaganda's power. Images shape public opinion more effectively than essays. Visual messaging becomes crucial revolutionary tool. Art serves politics. Newspapers wage ideological warfare daily. Patriot printers publish incendiary articles. Loyalist papers defend parliamentary authority. Each side accuses the other of lies. Truth becomes contested. Readers must choose which narrative to believe. Media environment polarizes rapidly. Moderate positions disappear. Everyone must pick sides. The Liberty Tree becomes a powerful symbol. Originally just Boston elm, it transformed into resistance icon. Colonists gather there for protests. Effigies hang from its branches. Other cities designate their own liberty trees. Physical locations anchor abstract ideals. Revolutionary movements require such symbols to unite diverse supporters. British officials recognize deeper crisis now. This was not merely tax dispute. Colonial defiance challenged imperial authority fundamentally. If Parliament cannot tax colonies, what power does Britain retain? Empire requires subordination. Colonies demand equality. These positions cannot both prevail. Compromise becomes impossible. Collision course has been set. King George watches developments with growing anger. His subjects across the Atlantic defy parliamentary authority. Mobs terrorize royal officials. Trade boycotts harm British interests. This cannot continue. The colonies require discipline. Military force may prove necessary. Authority must be restored. Accommodation only encourages further resistance. I serve in British Army. Officers discuss colonial situation constantly. Many want deployment to America. They want to teach rebels proper respect, restore order through force. But others warn against military solution. 3,000 miles from home, fighting English colonists? Such war would be nightmare. Victory would breed lasting resentment. The Stamp Act's repeal solved nothing fundamental. Colonial and imperial visions of government remain incompatible. Parliament asserts absolute sovereignty. Colonies claim inherent rights. Both sides now understand this conflict clearly. Future disputes will prove more dangerous because underlying tensions are now recognized, hardened, seemingly irreconcilable. New taxes will come, inevitably. Britain needs revenue desperately. War debt remains enormous. Colonies seem prosperous, lightly taxed. Parliament will try again with different approach. Colonial resistance networks stand ready. Next crisis will escalate faster. Both sides learned from Stamp Act experience. Future confrontation will prove more organized, more violent. Young colonists grew up during this crisis. They learned resistance as first political lesson. Authority can be challenged. Collective action achieves results. Rights must be defended actively. These young people will lead next generation. Their formative experience was defying British power successfully. Revolution's future soldiers received first training. I am schoolboy in Boston. I watched mobs gather beneath Liberty Tree. I saw stamp distributor resign in fear. I heard my father discuss colonial rights at dinner. These experiences shape my understanding. Government exists to serve people. When rulers violate rights, subjects should resist. These principles will guide my life. 10 years separate March 22nd, 1765 from Lexington Green. The Stamp Act crisis planted seeds that bloom into revolution. Constitutional conflict transforms into armed struggle. Political debate becomes military confrontation. That first resistance taught colonials crucial lesson. United action achieves independence. History pivots here. Boston streets remember everything. That warehouse where merchants first pledged boycott. The Liberty Tree where crowds gathered. Andrew Oliver's destroyed office. Each location holds memory of resistance. Walk these streets today and feel ghosts of revolution. Ordinary colonists stood here and defied empire. Their courage created nation. Picture alternate history carefully. Parliament never enacted Stamp Act. Colonial grievances remained vague, unorganized. British Empire continued ruling America peacefully. No revolution occurred. The United States never existed. World history flows, completely differently. One parliamentary decision, a simple tax, ultimately created a nation that transformed civilization. The colonists who resisted thought themselves loyal British subjects defending traditional rights. They demanded recognition as equals, not independence. Yet their resistance logic led inevitably towards separation. Once government authority depends on consent, and consent is withdrawn, what remains? Revolution became inevitable from Stamp Act's passage onward. Stand at that Liberty Tree location today, or where it stood before British soldiers cut it down in rage. Feel history's weight. Here, ordinary people challenged the world's greatest empire successfully. Here, resistance began that birthed American independence. One crisis, one tax, one defiant moment when colonists said no. Everything changed forever.